The Holy Gospel according to John, the first chapter.
Glory to you, Lord.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify to the light, so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light. The true light, which enlightens everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world came into being through him. Yet the world did not know him. He came to what was his own, and his own people did not accept him. But to all who received him, who believed in his name, he gave power to become children of God, who were born not of blood or of the will of the flesh or of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and lived among us, and we have seen his glory, the glory as of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord.
In the beginning was the Word. That's where John's gospel narrative begins. In the beginning. This is John's nativity story. In John, there are no angels or shepherds, not even a baby lying in a manger. There's no mention of Mary or Joseph or even giving a name to Jesus. There aren't even any wise men, which feels like such a travesty given how we've been following these wise guys all month. But no, it's the Word that is what sets this story in motion. The Word that was with God and the Word that was God. This birth story, if you call it that, this nativity, begins not in the backwoods of Bethlehem after centuries of human existence, but rather it begins at the beginning of time. And in John's nativity, we hear echoes of that creation story that we find in Genesis. You remember that, right? In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth, was the Word. When God said, "Let there be light," the Word was there. When God said, "Let earth bring forth living creatures of every kind," the Word was already there. When God saw everything that was made and declared it very good, the Word had been there. In the beginning was the Word. And today we gather to celebrate and remember that the Word became flesh and lived among us. A Word from the beginning of time, through Jesus' physical birth into this world 2,000 some years ago, through his physical death and resurrection and ascension, through to the present age and into the age to come. In the beginning and now is the Word. I've always wondered what made this story to be a part of our Christmas celebrations. I mean, it is a story that's captured the imagination of people since the beginning of time and all the way to today, but it's also a story that has captured the skepticism of people from the beginning of time all the way to today. There are people who find this story, this theological claim, easy to believe and something they can find comfort in. And there's others for whom this story brings just too many questions and a desire to dismiss it. So why would we hear something that can bring so much uncertainty and challenge on a day that's meant to be celebratory? Well, if I learned anything this morning about today, earlier this morning, today is a day meant to open gifts. And so maybe we can open up this story and see if there's a gift inside of it for us. We know that the story of Jesus' birth was this radical inbreaking of God into this world. It's God entering this world as a human being, as John said, and the Word became flesh and lived among us. Maybe the key word in all of this is the Word. Because I think we know that for God, words have power. In the beginning, when God spoke, something happened. The word that was spoken was then created. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God said, "Let there be plants and animals and water and people," and there was. God probably could have chosen any other means to break into this world and save it and redeem it and recreate it with just the snap of a finger or the speaking of any word. And yet speaking the Word, the Son, into existence is exactly what God has done and what we proclaim God has done. God doesn't do this from a distance, but instead is birthed right into the midst of us and this world. God became flesh and bones, blood and tendon and ligament, and all the emotions and feelings that go along with it. God was born full of life and experienced all of life for you and for me. When God entered this world through this Word, through Jesus, God chose to enter into the nitty-gritty details of everyday life here on earth through an unexpected mother, in an overlooked town, in an unassuming manger. When the Word was birthed, then when God put on this flesh, nothing was excluded. This birth was meant to be the light for all people, in all places, in all situations. There isn't a life or a place or a circumstance for whom this birth, this word, was not intended, and for whom this should not bring good news. And that's the gift of a word. How many of you have ever received a gift? A few of you, okay. How many of you have ever given a gift? A few more, okay. Have you ever uttered the phrase, something similar to, "Oh, it's not really a gift, it's just something small, it's just something I wanted to give to you. No big deal." You ever said something like that? Okay. Well, I'm here to tell you to knock it off. A gift is a gift, big or small, and sometimes the greatest gifts are the small gifts. Like in this case, the gift is a word. You can't get much smaller than a word, I don't think. And yet we have witnessed in the work and the creative power of God that a word can create anything and everything. If we want to go back and compare again these different nativity stories, Jesus' birth in Luke and in nearly every Christmas pageant you ever see, I mean, it's kind of an ordinary experience, right? A human baby born to a human mother, a young family trying to fulfill their duty of being counted for a census, a family so unknown and unimportant that they can't even find a place to lodge when it comes time for this baby to be born, a family so unprepared, you know what that's like, that this baby, when it's born, has to lay in an animal trough on a bed of hay. That feels like a pretty ordinary story, especially when you compare it to John's nativity story, where we hear that the Word was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through the Word, and without the Word, not one thing came into being. A spoken word that can create, a small gift that can bring about abundance. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word became flesh and lived among us, and this Word still lives among us today, and every day, and forever, from the beginning to the end. This living word is for you, for me, for all of us, no matter where we are on our faith journey. The divine and the human have been brought together. That's what we celebrate at Christmas. We celebrate that God knows the human experience, that God knows this story in which we live and breathe. And maybe that means that our words can take on a bit more significance because of that. Because we come from that holy word, our words can be holy. Our words, as we see, can create and they can tear down. Our words can be a gift to this world, and they cannot be a gift to this world. So maybe that becomes more of the gift of this word and this narrative and this nativity from John's gospel. The stories from Luke and Matthew give us the beautiful gift of this baby born to us, a baby born to the world. We hear messengers of joy, thanksgiving, and worship. But John's words, John's word, point us to the central conviction of our faith, of the Christian faith, that Jesus Christ, the baby born in Bethlehem, is God and has been God since the beginning, since the creation of the world. So may this word, this gift, bring us the light we need to live in this world, the light we need in our darkness, the light we need in our weariness, the light that is needed in our pain and despair and hopelessness, sickness and brokenness. And may this light always point us to the God who is from the beginning, who was always, and who is to come, now and forever. Merry Christmas to you all. Amen.